going to be talking about a super practical topic, which is how do you actually compensate early hires of your startup? Without further ado, let's dive on right in. Hi, everyone. My name is Shuo Chen. I am a former founder, now investing in founders and teaching founders at Berkeley and Stanford. I've personally invested in over 100 pre-seed and seed stage startups. Out of them, a dozen of them have gone on to do successful IPOs, as well as get acquired by Fortune 500 companies. And another dozen of them are now in unicorn status and growing rapidly. And I'm constantly investing in new companies. And I want to share with you some of the best practices I've seen for how some of the best startups actually compensate their early hires. I've also had the fortune of serving on the board of DECODE here. We're the largest founder community co-hosted across Berkeley and Stanford, and I want to share with you some of the tactics that we've seen across our community as well. So without further ado, we'll dive on right in. Just a quick announcement, we've just hosted the DECODE annual conference, and we will be uploading all the sessions from the conference, from conversations with the chief product officer of OpenAI, to the co-founder of Lightspeed Ventures, to the founders of various AI unicorns. But we'll also be sharing notes to the different sessions. So if you're curious and learning more, please feel free to subscribe to our newsletter, hyperlinked down below. So without further ado, let's dive on right into the top 3 tactics to help you effectively compensate for early hires in your company. So on tactic 1, you want to actually try out early hires on a contract to hire basis. You want to try out these candidates despite there being a myth. So there's oftentimes a myth to say, oh, the best people will only want to be hired for a full-time job. They don't want to ever consider a contract to hire basis, but that's actually a big myth. The truth is that even the best talent will consider contract to hire because they highly value their time and they want to make sure it's a good fit before they join a company. So this is where they want to try working with you to see if things are a good fit before they decide whether or not to join full-time. So the best talent absolutely will consider contract to hire, depending on, of course, how you set up the contract and relevant NDAs if it's needed. But it's a great opportunity to help both the candidate and the startup to just assess for long-term compatibility. In fact, this actually gives potential full-time employees a chance to just build relationships and assess fit before they make that final decision to jump ship and invest their life, which is their most valuable asset, their time, with you. This is where you want to set up for success by designing an experiment that lasts X number of days or months or weeks. You want to test each other out for this predefined period of time, and then at the end of it, talk about whether or not this should turn into a full-time relationship where this early hire actually joins you full-time. So after you've done a contract to hire test for any potential candidates and you've tried out this candidate on a contract to hire basis, then we can move on to tactic 2, because after you've assessed that there's a really good fit, then you want to figure out how to actually pay them. And in order to pay people, you want to define your compensation framework early on. This is where you want to build a framework for how to compensate these early hires after you've assessed that they're the right fit, of course, because a defined compensation framework is defensible and is consistent. So you don't want to randomly pay people different chunks of money based on random reasons. You want to make sure that you have a clear framework for it. Generally speaking, a clear compensation framework has a couple components. 1, compensation should reinforce the specific value that that role or function contributes to the broader startup. So this is where you want to think through some of the top functions like sales or customer success or product and engineering. So sales, for example, thrives on just immediacy and ownership right away. So you want to set up your compensation framework in a way where you're really fueling salespeople's performance and discipline in just measures to help them act right away. On the other hand, for customer success, this is less based on short-term wins. This is very much driven by relationships and retention. This is where you want to reward long-term value, not just short-term wins. And then for things like product and engineering, they really live at the intersection of vision and execution. So here, this is where you want to spark urgency, but you also want to have some sort of shared accountability for the outcome. So based on what you're optimizing for, you can figure out how you pay differently. Next, you can actually define your compensation framework by asking some very specific questions, like what are the company values and how can these be reflected in the compensation? What are or will be the balance of equity versus cash for employees? Where will we sit on the transparency spectrum? Does everybody know how each person's compensated, or do only select people know across the spectrum of everybody knows and only the founder knows where are we? What percentile will we aim for our employees to hit relative to the market? How will top performers be rewarded? Is our philosophy fair, simple, and defensible enough over time? And is it scalable? You want to ask all of these questions to help you get to a more nuanced compensation framework. Lastly, just as a reminder, don't wait for review season to actually talk about pay. This is where you want to recognize your early hires' impact in real time and reward that, even if it means it's an off-cycle comp increase. This is something that not a lot of people talk about, but really important. And once you've asked yourself this list of questions and you've defined a compensation framework based on the function, whether it's sales, customer service, or product and engineering, and you're reviewing this on an ongoing fluid basis, then you have effectively achieved tactic 2, which is defining your compensation framework. Then we can move on to tactic 3, which is introducing 3 to 4 salary tiers. So if you're looking at big companies, especially big tech, they have all sorts of different types of salary tiers, up to, like 8 or a dozen salary tiers. But for startups, you want to keep it relatively simple in the early days. This is where you want to define only 3 to 4 salary tiers that reflect the potential hire's experience and contribution. Again, these are early hires to your company, so you want to make sure to have a clear framework that are based on and rooted in your company values that you can defend. So a potential 3 to 4 level framework could look like this, where level 1 is a junior or entry-level person that has between 0 to 3 years of experience. They're all really early in their career, new to the function, and require a lot of guidance and mentorship. A level 2 could be a mid-level or more experienced individual contributor who have between 4 to 7 years of experience. They're a solid practitioner who can execute independently and doesn't require constant direction. A level 3 could be a senior or expert person with 8 to 12 years of experience. This is a seasoned professional who brings strategic depth and also can manage or even mentor others and may begin to define processes or best practices for that specific function. And then a level 4, if you want to separate between 3 and 4, 4 is where it's really principal and leadership level, where you have 10 to 15 years plus of experience, where they're a deep expert or even a very early functional leader, maybe one of the first managers in the organization. They typically own a discipline or a domain outright, and they just receive performance-based equity or even leadership bonuses. So you can cut out one of the levels to shorten this level 4 down to just 3 levels if that's a right fit for your organization. But anywhere between 3 to 4 salary tiers at the beginning is a good way to think about early hires. And of course, if you want to know what the potential tiers are, what market data looks like, we'll of course attach the details in our newsletter down below, where you can read more about where to find market data to just cross-check if your salary is in the right range and if you're in the right percentile relative to the market. So all of this is for tactic 3 around just introducing 3 to 4 salary tiers. And so to recap, we've talked about the top 3 tactics for figuring out how to even compensate and pay for your early hires in the organization. And in this process, we've talked about these 3 tactics of trying out candidates on a contract to hire basis. We've talked about defining your compensation framework early based on both the function as well as their contribution and experience by building out a compensation framework. And then lastly, introducing 3 to 4 salary tiers to help have a defensible and very practical framework that you follow consistently throughout. If you, of course, want to learn about other traps to avoid in this process and tools that you can leverage, again, we'll attach it below in our newsletter where you can read more. And if you have any other follow-up questions based on what we covered today, please feel free to leave a comment below for us or reach out to us on LinkedIn or email, and we would love to help answer your questions in a future session. And if you found today's video helpful, please don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and share this video with other fellow founders, friends of yours in the community. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Take care.